Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'm in the Palmetto State. I'm joined here by Jamin, and he is one of the owners of JJE, or Palmetto State Armory. And he's also a firearms collector, and he has gone to great lengths to put together one of the coolest collections of firearms I've ever seen, but it's not something he's going to hide behind closed doors and walls. He's planning to open a new museum in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and all the weapons that you see here, plus countless more, will be on display for you to come by and check out if you're in the area. It'll be a great destination for, a holiday or something like that. So what we're going to talk about in today's video is submachine guns of World War II, some of the lesser known breeds of submachine guns, and at least the M3 grease gun people know about probably. But we're going to talk about some of the more rare guns that were used during the war or developed for the war effort. And these are things that kind of piqued my interest, kind of pouring over his collection. So first of all, congratulations on an outstanding collection.
I appreciate it.
So we were talking about what we wanted to do, and we're going to break this up into different chunks, and we're going to cover different topics. In this video, I already said submachine guns, but you'll notice we have some stuff laying out here, and this is capture paperwork. So tell us what draws you to the captured guns, with the documented ones or the bring back papers?
Well, really, the history of the war can be told with what was brought back from the war. You have just really cool, unique guns from things people know about, grease guns, to some really rare guns, but the history and the stories told by the soldiers can be shown in what they brought back. Now, like most soldiers that came back wanted to bring back a K98 or a German Luger, or any of the popular guns, FG42, MG42, 50 cal, whatever they wanted to bring back. But the uniqueness of some of the things that were brought back, to me, tells the story of just an average, everyday U.S. Soldier who's overseas and can't wait to get back, and looks at something and thinks, wow, I can't wait to bring that back. Like this over here, let me show you.
This one? Or
no, let's go in the corner, the
okay.
air raid siren. To me, this is the funniest one. And everything in the collection has the capture documents.
Here's the
so
paperwork.
Everybody understands. This is the paperwork. So in 1944, they initiated regulations where if you were going to bring it back, there were certain rules that had to be required. It couldn't be anything that was life-sustaining to the soldier that was captured. It couldn't be their gas mask. It couldn't be food or anything like that. But they said anything outside of certain parameters could be brought back. So in 1944, anytime a soldier brought something back to get through customs, they had to have capture documents. And everything in the collection has original capture documents. I'm pretty anal about that. To me, it makes it more unique. You could find an air raid siren, for sale on eBay,
right,
but it could just be from Japan or found anywhere. But to have the actual paperwork where the soldier had his commander sign off on it and get the approval to bring it back, to me, makes it from just a cool piece of history to just an absolute, look at this.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely tells the story of the soldier. So this is Corporal Charles M. Anderson. He in 10 September 1944, he's in the war in Japan, right? And for whatever reason, he gets to come home. His tour is done, and he looks around and he can bring back a Nambu. He can bring back all kinds of crazy cool guns, and he looks at an air raid siren and he says,
in pristine condition.
This is what I want. I'm going to bring this back. And you can only imagine, he's probably like an 18 or 20-year-old kid, and he thinks, I'm going to get home and I am going to annoy the crap out of my brother.
Right.
And just, or I'm going to be at parties and celebrate with the air raid siren.
Right.
To me, it's like the average person grabbed a gun.
Right.
But it's the other stuff that people grab that, to me, is unique.
I think it speaks to their personality, right?
It really does.
Yeah.
The people that grab something different than a gun, to me, as stuff is more collectible, it means a little bit more.
Right.
The air raid siren is a great example, and the museum has hundreds of these pieces. But Tim, another cool one over here is this soldier. This is from the German front, brought back a Luftwaffe radio tube from a Luftwaffe aircraft. And you just think about, there wasn't really techies at the time, but you think about this soldier. Now I want to get a Luger. Now I'm going to get a P-38. Now I'm going to get a K-98 and FG-42. No, I'm going to get a radio tube.
Right.
This is your future, techie Bill Gates type.
Yes.
In the making, that he sees something like this. Or we have other examples. We have a Luftwaffe life raft. Like,
yes,
who does that? Maybe I'm going to go fishing on Hitler's dollar. We have telescopes. We have stethoscopes. We have just it's just the most amazing thing. Or some of them, I'm going to put that back over there. So this other one that I find extremely interesting, this soldier shot down this airplane. And what a cool trophy. He pulled off the data plate from it.
Yeah.
Of course, this is Japanese, and then to get it back without getting in trouble from his command, he had to have.
Oh, I won't tear that paper.
Sure, he had to have capture paperwork, and right here, capture paperwork.
That's really cool.
And it has the name and a data plate. It says one each Japanese aircraft nameplate. I just think that is so cool. And I would love to have met the soldiers, talked to the soldiers, but they sort of still get to talk to us through this.
Absolutely.
Their uniqueness, well, first of all, their heroism, what they did overseas, and little pieces of their lives get to live on. As part of the point of the museum. These are great Americans, brave men, fought for our freedom, and they had just a little mark on history, and we're trying to preserve that.
I want to point out one other thing. You kind of touched upon it, but like a techie would want this. Keep in mind, guys, this tube was the epitome of technology in the 1940s.
Absolutely.
I mean, those German fighters, German small arms were so advanced, years ahead of themselves. And the technology that's used in this tube is still very similar to the technology we use today. We've just miniaturized it into chips.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, it's just basically an on-off switch.
Yeah, and some of the technology, and I know Tim over there, the right to your left, you might want to talk about that. I mean, just the technology that the Germans had. Thankfully, the Nazi regime was defeated, but they were super advanced as a military.
They were 70 years ahead of their time. And this is a perfect example of that. Most people would say that the STG-44 was the coolest gun of World War II. Certainly gets the most notice, right? But it is amazing because that thing did set the pace for the world's militaries up until modern times.
Right.
And they developed that in the 30s and 40s, 44. Anyway, so they developed that pretty early on, and the cartridge and the, stampings, lightweight, select fire became the basis for the AK-47, M16, and everything else. But this gun, the German engineers were told, they were given a task and they were told, develop a rifle that shoots the full power 8mm that can fire both semi-automatic and fully automatic from a detachable magazine, about the same length as a K98 bolt-action rifle, and it seemed like an impossible task. At least it would to me, given its relatively light body, its construction. It uses wood and sheet metal. It's still not as heavy as it looks, right? And it's firing a full power 8mm cartridge from a 20-round magazine, and it has the magazine on the side so the paratroopers could actually go prone with it and minimize their profile. And so much thought went into this gun. And you've seen me talk about my semi-automatic version. This is an actual machine gun. Now, these would fire from the open bolt on full auto, closed bolt on semi-auto.
That's right.
And they have their bayonet up there, very effective, muzzle brake that really tames that 8mm. So you could effectively use it in full auto in bursts. This gun to me, and then it has the ability to quickly throw on an optic and take it off. Now that is stuff that the U.S. military didn't even do until early 90s.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
So we saw a lot, after World War II, we saw a lot of allied countries, like the French and stuff, moving over to optics like this. But the U.S. Army and the U.S. Marines and stuff like that, it would be in the 90s before we started using optics.
This gun actually kind of got me into collecting. So when I was just a kid, I had done ROTC at Clemson University. I got sent to Aberdeen Proving Grounds to do Officer Basic, and they had the Army Ordnance Museum, and they had, in fact, that's a lot of the inspiration for this collection here. But I would go in, and as soon as you would walk in the door of the display, there's a couple different types of these, and they were just lined up. And of course, I still have a few more to collect. Never have it all, but
you'll see them with the swept back.
Yeah,
the first generation swept back pistol grip.
This gun just stood out, and it's just a marvel of engineering.
When I learned about them, I was blown away by what would seem to be an impossible task that those engineers were given.
And keep in mind, that right there, imagine being the soldier in World War II.
That looks like alien tech.
Yeah, no, exactly. Picking that up and like, what in the world?
They're shooting this at me. I got my M1 Garand, and what in the world?
Yeah.
I know, that's just insane.
It's just nuts. A couple other things, and some of them are just, you want to get inside the head of the soldier, like the air raid siren to annoy the brother or friends, or the radio tube, the future techie, or the guy who shot down a plane and took the data plate. This one I think is particularly interesting. So when the Japanese surrendered, most islands had a general that was the commander of the island. And so this was one of the southern islands, the general, and we have the pictures from the event. You have it was a U.S. colonel right here, and then you had the general in the background. They met on a dock right outside of the island, or right on the edge of the island, for them to surrender. This was the handgun. The Japanese general handed over three things. He handed over the handgun, the holster, the ammunition, and this flag. And when we got this, we have the capture paperwork from this. We have the history of it. We have the awards that the U.S. Colonel was given, for his actions. This is just a tremendous piece of history.
It is. And the Nambu is one of those pistols that I personally collect as well. This is an 8mm Nambu, and the Japanese were interesting. Where the Germans were light years ahead of them, the rest of the world, the Japanese really weren't. They had very, very good steel, but their weapons designs left so much to be desired, with the exception of the Airsocket, but that was designed by the Germans, right? It's just a Mauser.
That's right.
So the guns that they developed themselves, like the Type 99 machine gun, Nambus, Type 94s, they're not really quality guns in the sense that they're quality constructed, but the designs are lacking. And the Type 14 is one of those guns that I really, really enjoy shooting and buying. I don't have anything with capture paperwork because I know that significantly increases the value of the firearm. But man, I love those Nambu pistols. And what's cool is, years ago, those were dirt cheap because ammunition's not readily available. But now we have Steinel ammunition that makes 8mm, and you can shoot them. You can bring them back. Wolf Springs makes spring kits for them. Have you ever taken one of those apart?
I have not.
It's a great way to blind yourself.
Yeah,
it's a booger to get apart.
Yeah.
But they have new recoil springs, and so you can go take them out and shoot them safely. And now the prices are going up again. But yeah, very, very cool. So let's talk about some of the guns that we have here on the table, besides the Type 14. We have guns that you guys will know. So the Thompson was the most desired submachine gun, arguably on the Allied side anyway.
Right.
On the Axis side, you would have the MP40 and MP38 and stuff like that. But we had a shortage because the M1 Thompson was extremely time sensitive. It would eat a lot of time.
It was very expensive.
Very expensive to make and heavy. A lot of machining processes, all the wood that had to go into it, which requires a lot of manual labor. It was an expensive, slow gun to manufacture with the technology they had back then. So they wanted to fill that gap because we were not only using them by the big army, the Marines wanted them, and our allies wanted them. And so they couldn't make them fast enough. So they started looking at other options. And the M3 grease gun, which continued in service up until just recent times with American tank crews.
It went out when I was first in the Army, enlisted at 17. I was stationed in the 1st Cav Division, and our platoon had grease guns.
There you go.
1996.
So this thing lived on far longer than a lot of people know. But this is an early generation of the gun. They fire from the open bolt. They make extensive use of stampings, right down to the pistol grip. It's like two halves welded together. And then you have a simple open bolt mechanism. You have a barrel out here that just kind of cranks on, has a little detents, little ratchet on and off. Very simple mag well. And then you have a top cover. When this is closed, you see a hole here in the bolt. When that's closed, it makes it so you can't draw the bolt to the rear. So you can jump out of an airplane or jump out of a truck, and you're not going to worry about the bolt bouncing back, maybe picking up around and firing it, a concern with open bolt submachine guns. So you close that, it makes it truly safe. You draw it back. The later models would use a different cocking method, but this has that little handle that comes to the side. It rocks along the side of the gun. They would simplify the gun in later versions, get rid of this, put a hole literally in the side of the bolt, and you'd pull it back with your finger.
Yeah.
I mean, and the sights are non-adjustable, they're fixed, and it's just a little slow cyclic rate bullet hose.
The slow cyclic rate is nuts. So most submachine guns, you can just hit a tiny bit of time in between each round. That you can, you
can do one shot burst.
Boom.
One shot.
Those are fun.
They are. Really, really cool gun, really cool piece of history. So you guys have probably seen the old grease gun, right? So let's move past the M3. Now let's talk about a prototype, shall we? This gun, when I saw it, I didn't even know what it was. So this is rare. Not to say that I know a lot about guns like this, but I saw this, I'm like, what in the world is this? So you guys are familiar with the Rising submachine gun. Here's the Type 55, or Model 55, I'm sorry, right here, which was actually used by the Marine Corps in the Pacific. And again, that was an effort to try to give the Marines something other than Thompsons, because we were just trying to buy up submachine guns for jungle fighting and fighting in Europe and everything else. And that was one of the options. We'll talk more about it here in a minute. So this gun is based on the Rising. So it has the charging handle in the front, just like the submachine gun in 45 ACP. If you watch the bolt as it comes back, it locks just like its 45 counterpart. So you see that the tail of the bolt kind of drop down out of its locking recess, and it'll come back, has a linear striker back here. So you'll see it unlock. But this gun has something that the 45 Rising didn't have. If you look where my index finger is, there's the charging lever. I pull it down. That's a gas piston, guys. It's right in front. So there's a gas block somewhere underneath here, and it fires 30 carbine. So that, to me, is simply amazing. So here's the magazine. So it's longer than the 45 counterpart. stamped sheet metal. And then it has really cool sights and stuff that are different than the original Rising.
It's really different. And I have some of the paperwork that came with it. Again, I got this. The person who I bought it from claimed to be a relative of Mr. Rising. And he told me that this was submitted. There was a couple of them submitted to the Aberdeen Proving Grounds, and he gave me a bunch of paperwork to back it up. But this was his attempt at the M1 carbine style weapon for approval.
Notice the oiler?
Yeah.
It's right off the M1 carbine. So is the sling. Yeah.
And I'm trying to get a little bit more history on it. I find it one of the most unique guns in the collection. But Rising's famous for the Model 50, the 55, but
and
not
the 60s,
so much.
the 70s.
Yeah, not so much for this one. So if anybody has any more information on it, we'd love if you want to put it in the comments. We'd love to know about it.
Absolutely. Takes down just like the Rising 45. You have the takedown screw right here, and it's just a really, really cool piece. The rear sight is a protected rear sight. And just cool. Now, it also looks very much like an M1 carbine up here, including the barrel band, and then, of course, the sling and the oil bottle. So that, to me, was really, really cool. I didn't even know this thing existed. And this is what, number 3, you said? Or?
It's serial number 3.
Serial number 3. Yeah. And there's not many more than that
I
in
don't
existence.
know how many were made, but I was told it was just a small handful. And this was one that he kept. Of course, if it goes to Aberdeen Proving Ground, it's going to get torture tested and torn up.
They look really
rough,
rough, yeah.
According to the gentleman I bought it from, this is the one that he kept to have a nice example for himself.
Yeah, it looks
it's interesting. If you look at the
brand new.
magazine, I don't understand. I've only ever seen this on a Rising gun. So it's wide enough to be double stack, and they did this on the 50s and 55s and 9mm, but they crimped it to limit the capacity. And
there's two types of magazines for the 45s.
Right.
There's the 12-rounder and I think a 20-rounder.
Right.
So yeah, they did do that for whatever reason.
I don't understand why they would limit the capacity of the pack.
So it seems like, you know, as a policy in the U.S. military, you know, we were fighting that old desire by the brass in the military to make the soldiers aim. If you go back to the 1903 Springfield and Mauser's actions, where you could have the magazine shut off, and so you had single load, and then when given the order, you could switch to magazine for rapid fire. Right. They were really concerned about wasting ammunition.
That's right.
And so the submachine guns and guns that could load themselves were kind of not popular with the brass, but slowly they started to realize, especially with the M1 Garand just mopping the floor with the enemies.
And Rising had been developing for years, and
Yeah.
it probably had that old school mentality.
So we're seeing the metamorphosis of military doctrine combined with military
right.
technology. And that's what's really cool about this history. Now, before we get into the other oddballs, let's talk about the Model 55, because you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. So I've done a video on my Model 60, which is a semi-automatic version of this with an 18-inch barrel. This is the Model 55. Again, this will be used in the South Pacific, and it has a wire folding stock on the left-hand side, a very crude pistol grip made out of wood, a sling swivel on the bottom of the pistol grip, and out here in front of the charging handle. Now, when I pull the bolt back on this, look at two things. We'll look at the ejection port first. Watch how the bolt drops down in the rear as it comes rear, or it moves rearward, I should say, right? And then if you look here where my index finger is, when I pull it back, look what's not there. No gas piston. So this is a really, really cool piece. These were not known for their reliability or their quality, but you know, they're just trying to fill that hole. And the Marines, unfortunately, always get hand-me-downs or non-standard firearms in World War II. So there are other attempts to introduce submachine guns to the market. We'll talk about the UDM-42 here. This is a really, really cool piece you don't see every day. Now, this was developed during World War II. This one's a 9mm, and it too was an effort to find another solution, something for our allies. These were used by the U.S. military drop-in behind lines so partisans could use them. It didn't really find a whole lot of usage in the United States military.
But the European, especially with the 9mm round being used, in Europe it was, I don't want to say popular, but it saw some use by the European allies.
Yep, and it's an extremely high-quality gun. No stampings or anything like that, at least externally. It's all steel construction machine, heavy barrel, heavy receiver. We don't have the magazine in it here, but here's the magazine release. It's slotted, so it slides in and locks, and it won't rotate or wobble.
It doesn't have the magazine on it. We need to do another video. We could do another video just about this gun. The magazine is very unique. It is two magazines, and they're together.
Yeah, they're welded together, so you can turn them around.
So you fire, run on around, or empty the weapon and turn around and fire it again.
They did that to increase, to speed up the reloading time. But they were also told, the folks that were using it, they were instructed really not to do that and keep grass, dirt, and mud out of the magazine, because when you do those types of magazines, if you go to the ground or whatever, you're diving to the ground with your magazine. And so they were saying, yeah, we've done this, but be very careful, because it'll induce malfunctions at the worst possible time.
Sure.
So they did do that. It is cool, and they welded them together to do that.
It's the craziest.
Yeah, these really, really cool gun. Again, the UDM-42. And so this is another one that caught my eye.
Yeah, this is a really, I didn't know much about this gun. I saw it at the auction, and it was just so cool. I didn't know a thing about it. I was just, I have to get it for the collection.
It is extremely rare. I don't know of any military use of this.
I don't think so.
And it's made by Smith & Wesson. And this is a M1940 9mm submachine gun. Oh wait, this one's not full auto, is it?
I believe that's semi-auto.
Yeah, it is semi-auto.
Yes.
I just remembered that. So this is a semi-automatic, but it was made for the military, U.S. military to use, but it was never adopted. Now, if you look at this, what looks like a big magazine sticking out of it, that's not what it is. What you're looking at is an ejection port, and then the magazine is in the front, like that. So that is the wildest thing, because I was looking at this and saw the hole back there, and like, that's a weird place to stuff the magazine, and then realized, oh yeah, it's right there in the front. So not a gun you see every day.
Not at all. I mean, to me, the beauty of it is, I mean, when you hold it, it's very similar to the UDM-42.
It is.
When they machined it, I mean, it's just a cylinder.
Yes.
Like with the grease gun, they just stamped it, and it's really, really rough. I mean,
right.
They work, but these are beautifully machined. Look at the barrel, the fluting that's cut
Yep.
into it. This is a for its time period, 1940s.
Yes.
This is a very precise machine.
Yes. Very, very cool pieces. Extremely cool pieces. So again, guys, these are going to show up at Myrtle Beach in a museum. Do you have an idea when you might actually open the museum?
So the museum is part of the store, and the store opens, it'll be right by Broadway at the beach in Myrtle Beach. The store and range is sort of going to be a touristy type attraction like at Las Vegas, shooting, and then combined with the Cabela's. That should open in April of 2023.
Okay.
Now the museum is the second floor of the store. So once we're going to get the store open in April, and we're hoping by June we'll have the museum open.
That's awesome.
And it's, I think everybody's going to be really excited, especially if you like guns. You're going to love this. To me, this tells the story of American freedom through the firearms that we have. And everything from, it basically starts at World War I, and there's guns from World War I, World War II, Vietnam, more recent wars, and also has some pop culture stuff. We can put that in another video.
That's going to be fun.
It will definitely be an attraction. If you go to Myrtle Beach, you definitely need to stop it.
So we're going to tie this video up, guys. I'm going to tease you for the next video. There's more videos in this series coming. Can you grab the Type 4?
Sure.
If you guys want to learn about this, you're going to want to watch the next video. This is a Type 4, and it looks an awful lot like an M1 Garand, but it's not. And we'll talk more about this in an upcoming video. Guys, I want to thank you for supporting us here at the Military Arms Channel. If you'd like to financially support us, you can do that by becoming part of our Patreon family. There is a link in the video description below. Follow that link and join us over on Patreon. We also have content that only our Patreons can see. If you would like to support us here on YouTube, there's a little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that join button, and you can support us again right here on YouTube. Last but not least, please swing by and check out Copper Custom and Palmetto State Armory. Thank you for 14 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.